The four toolboxes of a master tech are tools, our knowledge, our communicator, and our mindset. In tools, it's tools of the trade. In knowledge, it's industry knowledge. In being an upper-level communicator, it's doing things like role-playing. It's doing things like training on upper-level communication. Finally, on mindset, it's having the mindset of I can always learn just a little bit more. In order to produce a master craftsman, this is the areas of focus that you should stimulate.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your hosts, Nate and Brian, are hanging out with you. And man, are we excited to invite a new guest on this week. Joe Person is joining us, the Joe Person from Go Time Training out of Texas. And we are excited to have him on to talk about the ultimate customer experience. But before that, let's break it down for you. Brian, let's hear a quote.
Happy customers are your biggest advocates and can become your most successful sales team. Lisa Masiello.
That's a great point because and it's something that I think everybody in retail or the customer service industry is ironically quick to forget. I've heard a long time ago that the average happy customer may tell one person, but the average unhappy customer will tell between 7 and 9 people.
Oh, that was like pre-Google.
Yeah, that's not even taking that. That's actual like referral stories, like person to person.
The only time I'll ever say this name on this podcast is just to talk trash about Yelp. Absolute garbage of a company. Trash, Yelp.
And not fans of them are we.
No, nor anyone else who sells anything or does anything for a living because it's set up to fail, Yelp. Yeah, but that survey, those surveys were done long before you had this internet marketing or internet reviewing systems. Hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands of people might read a bad review. And who's really going out of their way to read a good review?
Well, I can tell you personally that when I review a product, I typically look at the top and the bottom. So I'll look at the 5 stars and scroll through them and kind of quickly review a couple things, but I'm absolutely going to the bottom ones too to see what the poor experiences were.
Yeah, I think I only go to the poor experiences. I just go for the 1 stars and see what's up.
Look at you, a negative Nelly at heart.
Well, I just want to hear, I want to gauge what type of people were giving it a 1-star review. I can just kind of read what they're saying and think, nah, they're not like me. I think I'll enjoy this product. Or, yeah, he or she is exactly like me. If they don't like it, I won't like it.
And that's what makes it so powerful because it is the voice of the anonymous, you might say. And so it's the collective voice. It's one thing when you have somebody that you know tell you, hey, this company is bad or this service was awful or this food tasted poor. And you're going to take that for however you view that person. But when you see 1,000 1-star reviews, 2,000 2-star reviews, you start to wonder, wow, can the majority really be wrong? And that's where things get scary.
Oh yeah. And if you go research a product or a company and it's 50-50 good versus bad, you're not going anywhere near that company.
Right.
Or product.
Average rating 2.5 stars.
Yeah. But if it's us here, 4.9 star, just shy of 6,000 ratings. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, 4.9, I'm probably going to do business with you, especially with a lot of reviews. But I am absolutely going to look for those 1-star ones and find out. You just want to know what was up. And I'll tell you, so we're not as this airs, certainly, but, we'll be there when this airs. So tomorrow morning, family and I are going to Siesta Key, Florida. and we're staying at a VRBO house. And just like we're talking about with the reviews, I looked through the reviews of houses that we wanted to rent for the week. And this one that we're renting had a 4.8 star, I believe. And it had a few negative reviews. But all of the negative, I think it was 3, maybe 4, they were all answered like immediately by the owner. And she seemed to be doing whatever she could to make it right. Despite the fact that the people were already gone, the review was already written. It was always like, so sorry, Sandra, that you and your kids experienced, a lawn chair breaking in the yard. Wish you had told me about this while you were here, and I could have made it right. Just so you know, replaced all the lawn furniture on the patio. It's all brand new.
Nice.
Like, seriously, there was actually something like that, something roundabout way, something like that, where I'm just like, cool. Not cool of Sandra or whoever to not give her the chance to fix that while they were there, but cool that she just hopped right on, apologized for, something that was probably out of her control anyway, and then move forward to making it right. And that, to me, was a lesson that I want to have a meeting about with our staff here, just to say, and you can't go into the conversation with the upset client out of feeling like they're going to beat you down, or they're mad, or they're at fault and we're not. You have to go into it like with empathy, for one, thinking like, in this case, this was somebody who was on vacation, regardless of whose fault the whatever was. It messed up the vacation, and that's a time when you don't really want any mishaps. For us, it's when somebody could have a big issue. It's 88 degrees and humid outside, and they don't have any cooling overnight. Our house is 84 degrees and 80% humidity. If it's a mistake we made, and fall on that sword, jump on the grenade, own it, be very apologetic, empathetic, and even if we're going to get a 1-star review out of it and there's nothing we can do about it, at least in our response, we can make the next person know that, like myself, when I read all this lady's responses to negative reviews on her vacation home, I knew that she's someone who's going to take care of it. She can be all over that. You look at the houses where they have like 6 or 8 negative reviews out of hundreds of good reviews, and I don't see a response to them. Like, there's no answer. Like, I don't know. I mean, there's the dude who's just like, you changed the toilet flapper and it was $200. Found out I could have bought it for $40. And then my second cousin's stepdad would have thrown it in and just charged me, a 6-pack. It's like, okay, you can't win that argument.
Right.
But you can still respond on the thing and say, hey, yeah, I apologize you didn't know that sooner. And, maybe not be as mean about it as I want to be, which is like, yeah, we could have both saved time because we didn't want to go change a flapper at your house any more than you wanted us to come and change a flapper at your house. But you just respond in a kind way and say, yeah, it's too bad you didn't find that out sooner. Unfortunately, this is what it takes to get a licensed, plumber and a fully stocked truck and warehouse on wheels, and a bunch of people answer the phones when you call us Sunday night.
That is actually one of the fortunate or unfortunate responsibilities that I have here at our particular organization, Brian. I am the one that responds to our reputation concerns online.
Yes, you are. And
let me tell you, there's been some times where I have had to rewrite perhaps what I wanted to say.
There are no letters on the keyboard button that is backspace on Nate's computer.
That's exactly right.
He writes out a bunch of 4-letter words and then just backs it up.
Delete. And it is tempting. I mean, it is tempting to just want to go full Monty on somebody and be like, oh, yeah, you're right. It was completely our fault that you signed off on the agreed upon price up front and that it was 9 p.m. on July 4th weekend. And you couldn't get anybody else out, and we quoted everything to you up front. Yeah, you're right. That is our fault. We're sorry. And be all kind of passive-aggressive on it.
Yeah, do it, buddy. Wendy started doing that on their Twitter account, and everybody loved it. Somebody would just talk smack about Wendy's, and they would tweet back, clap back, as they call it. And yeah, the press ate it up. I would think it's funny. Every now and then Nate gets passive aggressive, but not with the client. He'll send it to me. Like, "Oh, what am I supposed to do with this?" And it's like, electrician threw a cigarette on my lawn, and I asked if he was going to pick it up, and he flipped me off and then flipped off the neighbor. You know, of course it's not that severe, but something like that. And he'll send it to me like, "All right, what am I doing with this?" I'm like, "It's your job, bro. I don't know what you want me to do." Right response.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Appreciate that.
Did you need me to get the fire department out? Put your lawn out?
If you would have had a butt signature, one of those butt cans on your lawn, we wouldn't have thrown it there. Just kidding. That's not what we recommend at all. But in terms of the home service professional, or really any of the service industry, no matter what trade or industry you are in, you need to walk away from those types of responses, and you need to be the bigger person and take the higher road. But to Brian's point, the response itself versus no response at all speaks volumes. I don't think any client expects any company to be 100% perfect. I don't think any homeowner expects any plumber, electrician, or technician to be 100% perfect. What they want is they want the problem to be resolved, ideally the first time. But if and when that doesn't happen, they just want to know that it's going to be resolved and to their benefit. It's not always about like, hey, I expect perfection, right? If you do, good luck, man. I feel bad for you. But it is about the follow through of taking care of whatever does go wrong if something doesn't happen to be perfect the first time. And the response that you give online, or the response that you give when you go out for that warranty callback, or that, something went wrong callback, those types of things, needs to very much be one of servanthood and one of, "Oh, very sorry this happened to you. Let's fix this for you." And I can tell you personally that if you go online and you look at products and you see, or services, and you see that there is a response, like Brian was talking about with that vacation home, it makes a difference. I think it does for all of us, because while it speaks to the fact that, something went wrong, it also speaks to the fact that the owner, the service provider, the company, whoever it is, tried to make it right, or made attempts to at least reach out and attempt to make it right. And that makes a big difference, because it gives you that confidence as a consumer that even if something would go wrong, this company is active, they're paying attention, and they are trying to do the right thing. Now let's take that down to the truck level. For all of you in the driver's seat right now listening to this, is that how you treat your client? We really have a big view that we desire to perpetuate throughout our entire organization, that each truck is its own mini company. And that means that it's not about ranking our company, the plumbing company at large. It's about ranking me, Nate Minnick, you, Brian Burton. It's about ranking that person. And if you go through our reviews, you will see not so much about our company, Benjamin Franklin, this, that, and whatever. You'll see that. But often you'll see names. You'll see, hey, Joe took care of me. Frank was awesome. Jane did a fantastic job. Because they're reviewing that person and that person's mini company, their own personal truck, their own personal truck company within the bigger umbrella. And that makes a difference, because one, it makes it very personal. And it's a lot harder to write a negative review when you're speaking to somebody personally than it is when you're speaking to some, big bad company out there that nobody actually works for. It takes a lot of guts to actually say, Brian Burton totally, botched up my home and flooded my house, and he's a terrible person. And so asking for that on a personal level tends to create better results and a lot more satisfaction in terms of your actual performance and the reviews that you'll see. It means something. And we put this up on TVs around our office. We send this out in text groups and emails and all kinds of things. When reviews come through, it means something to see your name listed right there. Nate Minnick took great care of me. He's one of the best. Would recommend him to anybody. That means a whole lot more than, Mr. Sparky is a great company, because I'm there. You're there.
I noticed Brian Burton flooded the house and was the worst person ever, and Nate Minnick was the best person ever.
Well, I think you could, even a plumber like you could draw the line that I'm not an electrician. So both of those were fake.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you didn't put that together.
No,
There you go.
I was stuck on me actually providing poor service.
Right.
Couldn't get over that one.
Never happened. Never happened. Well, poor service or good service is what we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to invite Joe Person to sit in your passenger seat right now. Our guest today is Joe Person. He is a natural when it comes to sales training, problem solving, and inspiring others to be the best version of themselves possible. Some of it is in his blood. His family has been thriving in the jewelry, coin, and antique business for over 50 years in St. Petersburg, Florida, and he spent his childhood watching his father and grandfather work the business. As a jack of many trades, Joe has owned a mortgage company, a national personal training company, managed a large telemarketing firm, and even has a licensed real estate agent. He jumped into the HVAC business back in 2012 in Florida, where he was born and raised. Joe started as a maintenance tech and quickly moved into sales, then management. The common denominator has always been his love for helping people, his strong customer service and leadership skills, and his knack for being a great listener, leader, and problem solver. He's married to his bride, Stephanie, and they've been together since they were 18. They have 4 children, and now he serves as a trainer for Go Time Success Group based out of Texas, which is a fantastic organization that we've sent some of our people to. With no further ado, let's welcome Joe to the show.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. It's good to talk to you again. Actually, we spoke before when deciding whether to do the episode or not, or deciding what we were going to do an episode about. And I am presenter / presentation trainer myself. So for me, it's like, you know, there have been some presentation trainers where you speak to them and you're like, really? You do that for a living? Congratulations, you know? So I want to get out, like, the pre-call for me, which we don't usually do for episodes on people that we've never actually heard or seen, is more of a vetting process where I'm like, how ready do I need to be to do most of the speaking on this episode? And it was like a 20-minute conversation where Nate spoke 6 words and I spoke for 4 minutes and Joe took the rest. And I'm like, this is going to be a good episode, Nate.
I'm about to say, don't make me start talking because you guys will have to shut me up.
With the press of a button, I can make that happen. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, true. You got mute.
Yeah. So you are a presentation communication trainer for Go Time University. Is that what it's called? Or Go Time Success Group? Yes,
but good point. Go Time has a university. We have some online training that we do in our university. But yes, to answer your question, I am a sales communication trainer for Go Time Success Group.
Awesome. Okay. And we actually just had 2 of our install apprentices at Go Time University for their install class, which we got very good feedback on from Mr. Daryl Otto.
Yeah, man, my man, Daryl Otto. I love that guy. I would love to hear more. If I don't take too much away from what you guys are trying to get to right now, give me some dirt. How the guys like the class?
You know, I should have had a text ready to go where I could have read the feedback that we got from one of them via text, like day 5, I think, while he was there. But it was basically, we need to get all of our install helpers here immediately to be trained up and be ready for the summer. So we have... Oh,
man. Fantastic, man.
We're weighing up. Well, I guess as this episode airs, this decision will be behind us. But right now we're weighing sending 2 or 3 people to the next class. So, yeah. So Daryl and I are texting back and forth as of this morning and trying to get that squared away. But yeah, we had David Daffin, who is a owner-operator in Texas, a good friend of the show and friend of mine. And he told us
What's
that?
I said he's a friend of mine, too.
Oh, cool. All right, you know him as well.
Yeah. Well, I've had the privilege of training his technicians for the last year. We did some sales and some communication training with his technicians and his sales staff. But, man, what a fantastic company down there in Granbury, Texas. I've had the privilege of even doing an on-site down there, jumping in the truck with his team. Really, there's not a whole lot of companies out there to do it better than that, man.
Yeah, and he's such a good stand-up guy as well. I got to meet and hang out with him in Hawaii in October, and both of our wives were there, and we got to just relax. There was no business to handle or anything, just drinks and good food and an ocean behind us. So it was a good time to connect with him. And I'd definitely like to go see your guys' organization and go see his and spend some time in Texas.
Yeah, man. It's a fantastic organization. I feel privileged to ever have an opportunity to work with a company like that because, well, just the fact that they do so well and then they, extend their hand for help, says something about their leadership and their culture of training to begin with. So, yeah, David's a fantastic person. The whole team. I appreciate the entire team, Tracy, Cody, everybody there. They're really honestly one of my favorite companies out there.
Awesome, Joe. Well, we're looking to talk to you specifically about getting some sales training. And I understand that's your expertise and you have kind of your own proven process. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. So, over my lifetime, my past, I've done a lot of sales. I've worked inside of a lot of organizations, owned my own companies, really kind of have just my entire background riddled with sales, communication, customer service. And, I've taken many levels of professional training, taken the John Maxwell stuff. I've done all, always applied myself in my careers in my past, but always been open-minded to learn as well. And, taking bits and pieces of my entire life. I'm now, middle 40-year-old guy, a bunch of kids. I've made enough mistakes in the house and in the field to figure some things out. So, yeah, man, I kind of, took the go time care process, the connection, the assessment, the recommendations and execution, the stuff that Ben and Chris had already kind of had ironed out even in the book. But, I kind of took and added some things inside of that, principle-based process that really just kind of hone in on creating that ultimate customer experience. When we focus on experience, it seems like you get a lot more yeses than you do nos. So I'm open to talk about the process or really wherever the conversation goes there for that.
And we are looking forward to that as well. And before we jump into it, Joe, how exactly did you get all where you are now? How exactly did you get into this career and what were you doing beforehand?
Awesome. Well, good question, I guess. I could take you back to about 2011. I had a fitness company out west here that had multiple locations in many states, and I kind of sold my portion of it back to one of my investors. Moved back to Tampa, St. Pete, Florida, where I'm born and raised. And I had a buddy that was working in HVAC. He had gone to trade school, phenomenal technician. He owns his own company down there now in Tampa. Professor Cool. His name is Daniel Sipe, one of my lifelong friends. Anyway, he was a comfort advisor or a selling tech at the time. And I jumped in the truck and rode with him. And, watching the communication aspects of it, watching the way that, he was with the customer, how much fun he was having in the house. And I became really attracted to it. It probably helped that he was peeling back some really good paychecks, and the paychecks weren't my interest. What my interest were the margin. Who could afford to pay him this much money? That was really where the attraction came in, because I understand business and I know it. So seeing that he was able to make that kind of money and run a truck and do this for another company, I really kind of told myself, wow. There's really something here to connect to in the trades. Ended up going to trade school myself and becoming a maintenance technician, and then a service technician. I didn't last that long as a mechanic. I'm probably not the best mechanic ever, but you can say I'm a mechanic with my mouth, because that's kind of my strong suit's always been, just put me in the house and the rest is history. So, yeah, that's kind of how I got to where I'm at. I ran calls, lots of them, put a lot of processes into place, did a lot of training, figured out what worked best for me, got into management, got into leadership. I've worked for other training organizations out there as well, that are in the trades. And, around into 2018, Chris Hunter, who I'd been connected with through Service Nation Alliance, I first met him all the way back, I think, 2016 or so, 2017, at one of the Service Nation events. And, we ended up connecting and I let him know, hey, my schedule's going to open up and I'm thinking about getting, into coaching and training, and go time was for me. That's kind of how I got to where I'm at.
Sounds like you have a vast pedigree there. And you mentioned a book. What book did you say that you contributed to?
Oh, no. I didn't contribute to it. Some of the process some of the sales process that I teach came from this book. And this book is Ben Stark and Chris Hunter. It's called It's Go Time. And it's basically insights and strategies for home service-based companies. Process, and a lot of questions get answered. It's fun. It's interactive. The chapters are fun. It's bright. It's vibrant. It's color. It's really neat.
All right. Well, let's jump into it, Joe. I think we're talking about running the ultimate call. Let's start with that. Where exactly are we beginning?
The ultimate customer experience. I think we can all collectively agree that the sales process starts when that phone rings, right?
Absolutely. So, that's what we teach here.
So what are we doing, at our companies to pad the mindset, the comfort advisor or the selling technician? There's a big difference. I say, and I teach this a lot when I'm on with companies, but there's a big difference in dispatching a selling tech or a comfort advisor on a lead that sounds like this: estimate to replace, due Tuesday at 2:30. Big difference between that and this: estimate to replace. Both decision makers will be present. Customer is interested in financing, willing to move forward as soon as possible. Due Tuesday at 2:30. Right? Which one would you rather?
Yes, absolutely. The second one.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot that goes into, kind of building the pre-stages of this experience, because we all realize that the sales process kind of starts when that phone rings. It's super important that we don't just pad the customer experience, but that we also pad the technician and or the selling technician or the comfort advisor to have the right mindset when they show up on these calls. Because if it's just another market lead and it's just another day, it's just another call that we're running, by giving them limited information and that type of stuff, that sometimes can be the mindset that we create. It's a basic mindset. When we fluff it with all those details, the first thing the technician thinks of is, man, this company has my back, right? This company has my back. So they're willing to, commit just a little bit differently to this customer experience, which in turn means that they're going to hear yes very, very more frequently than hearing no. So in my sales class, I actually cover a process. I've got what I call a CSR cheat sheet. And that cheat sheet runs down some of the things that you're supposed to do. How are we supposed to talk to these customers in a sales call scenario? What kind of things should we be talking about? How should we stand out from our competitors? And that's just something I do in the very pre-stages of my sales class, making sure that the setup is on point.
Right, absolutely, and that's critical because as our good the great author that we study here quite frequently, Stephen Covey, says, what normally begins well normally ends well.
Right.
Well, I like that, Joe, and we're absolutely big fans of having a great setup and a great transfer or a handoff, if you will, from the customer service representative to dispatch, and from dispatch to the technician, the plumber, the electrician heading out to the home. So assuming that has happened and we have some decent notes and some good momentum to go off of, where do we go next? How does the technician begin getting in the right mindset for that ultimate customer service experience?
Yeah, so in my sales class, it's something that I really feel strongly about, is making sure that the mindset's right. So sometimes I give the analogy of, hey, remember the old Nintendo? We could pull that cartridge out, we could kind of blow it off and
I love
put
that.
it back in, hit reset, right? I really like to kind of hit reset with the technicians that I work with. So we talk about beliefs and limiting beliefs. And we talk about how, in the class, how a lot of these thoughts that we carry with us, sometimes even from way early on our childhood, right? They have an impact actually on how we feel when we walk in the house. And I'll just give you a basic example, and hopefully I don't ruffle any feathers here, but you pull into the house and there's a Biden flag or there's a Trump flag or there's just whatever, right? There's a different core belief structure in some of our customers than there is in some of our technicians. And one of the things I'm really strong on is just teaching that shouldn't matter. What should matter, though, is the customer experience, because at the end of the day, we're all looking to progress in our companies, to make money for our companies, to make money for our families. And the color of that money is green. And no matter what opinions that we have to be willing to set that stuff aside. So we do a mindset exercise where we write down a lot of limiting beliefs that might be holding us back, that might be making us feel like essentially we're stuck in the mud. And those limiting beliefs, we write them down. We share them as a group. Sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes it's not. But we share them as a group, and then we step outside and we burn them off. We literally take them and put them in a metal trash can. We light them on fire and we burn them.
Nice.
And that is like a ceremonial style weigh-in on creating and developing a new mindset. And then from there, I've got, basic steps to, producing or creating new mindset. Got to have that burning desire, got to find your yes, don't negotiate with your dreams, that type of stuff. But that sets the stage, right, for, okay, now I've got this brand new person, right? They can maybe view things a little bit differently now. We've admitted to some of our limiting beliefs. Now we've challenged ourselves to push reset. So now we push reset. Beautiful. Now we start talking about process. So in our care process, in my full throttle HVAC sales class, we teach that we care more about the customer experience. Connection is the C in care. Assessment is the A. Recommendations is the R. E is execution. In connection, which is step one, we talk about the arrival, right? It's very important that we are arriving properly to these calls. Part of that is, number one, making sure the mindset is on cue. And then number two, making sure that we address the things that we know customers need, like in-home services, right? They fear who we are. They fear who the company is going to be sending out, right? Because all these companies have been on the news, in the last several years for, if you're an air conditioning company, you pulled the disconnect and you've said it's a failed compressor, right? So that makes it to Channel 12 News, and next thing you know, there's a stigma across the industry that, hey, these technicians are going to show up and they're going to rip people off, right?
Have you found that to be across the nation, that's the case?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think the news does a really good job at kind of pegging the technician to be kind of, this person that's supposed to show up with their booty crack hanging out and flicking a cigarette butt up into your driveway and, coming inside and being dishonest. And, you and I both know that that's probably the furthest thing from the truth than possible, right? These guys that are out there running these calls, these are the best fathers, the best husbands, the best friends, the best people, the best wives out there. These guys are, they're like me. They're like you. They're awesome. And I hate that they have that stigma attached to technicians, right? It really actually frustrates me. So because we know that exists, we have to overcome that in an expectation. So what that looks like in our arrival is we structure this next step, right? You kind of said, what are your steps? This next step for me would be, right, how we're arriving. We challenge our students to structure a value statement for their company. And that value statement truly overcomes some of the most common fears that these customers have when we arrive on calls. Another fear they have is, where are you going? What are you doing when you get here? What's the plan, right? They want to know that you have a plan. So not only do they fear who you are and kind of, your credibility, for lack of better words, but they also fear kind of what you're supposed to be doing there that day. Like, are you going to be sniffing my underwear drawer? Or are you going to be like, where are you walking into that door? Are you going to let my German Shepherd out of that back bedroom like the last guy, and then he gets out the front door and gets hit by a car? Like, these are things they think about, right? So we have to kind of disarm some of these anxieties, some of these fears that customers have over a contractor. So when we arrive, we have what we call a value statement, and they address these things. The final thing and the final clue to a value statement is how they're supposed to pay for it, right? Because we all know that some customers have a little bit of anxiety towards the payment portion of it. Do you accept financing? Can I write a check? Am I paying with cash? Do you accept credit cards? Can I pay with my Diners Club? I mean, there's so many options, right? And then to back it up, there's even a lot of customers out there that have had somebody from in-home services in their house before, maybe a plumber or an electrician. And, next thing you know, we're 2 hours deep into a repair. They're finally done and they go to leave and we go to hand them our credit card and they say, oh, whoa. We don't take credit cards. Right. And then here we go. So that in by itself kind of develops this stigma of, okay, like I'm going to worry about it, but I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm not going to call the company and say, hey, the guy you're sending out today, is he safe? Do you guys drug test and background check your technicians? They're not going to ask that, but instead they're going to think that and they're going to hope that. So again, in line with producing that ultimate customer experience, one of the first things that you have to do is over deliver on those expectations. So again, we structure that value statement. So when we arrive, we can address these things up front, and then we can almost set the customer's mind at ease. Now they know there's a plan. Now we've kind of answered some of the unspoken questions. Now we can move on. We can progress into either a service call scenario or in my land, a sales call scenario. And then we go into the next step, right? Which is the second letter of the care process, the assessment. And in the assessment, we teach our folks, our guys, our students, to evaluate the customer through questions. What kind of questions are you asking? There's a lot there. Some guys go out on sales calls and they show up and they wing it, right? They've got their estimate templates and their software that they use, and they produce, an estimate or two, and they talk to the customer a little bit. They hope for the best, and that's about it. But they miss that golden opportunity to ask qualifying questions, if you will. But the thing about qualifying questions is there's a lot more to them than just what meets the eye. And I don't want to give away the fort, but I'll give you a couple of different examples, all right? So I'll just ask you this question, too. At your company right now, do you guys have selling techs or comfort advisors?
Both.
Okay. The comfort advisors, when they go out and run the call, do they have a consistent list of questions that they ask the customer?
I think it would be respective to each person who's doing them, but yes, they would have process driven application of their appointments.
Okay. So in these questions, I'm going to bring up just like a couple of very basic, I get to see these, what you call maybe a comfort survey. I get to see these comfort surveys from companies all over the nation, right? So over time, I've kind of put together, or I've stockpiled like the most common questions I see and the ones that have the most impact into one sheet, right? And that's the sheet that I use in training. It's our Go Time Comfort Survey. And this is just an example. But if I were to ask you, the very first question on this comfort survey is, how many years have you lived in this home? If I were to ask you that question, what would you think that my point was? What am I trying to extract or get out of the customer when I ask a question like, how many years have you lived in this home?
Oh, from one angle, I would assume you're probably trying to get a little bit of information regarding the age of the equipment or how long I have been dealing with the equipment, and if I have had any type of concerns or symptoms that I've been experiencing over time while living there.
So basically what you're saying is you're trying to see how aware the customer is, right? Aware of their house, aware of what's going on, just kind of how aware they are, right? Is that kind of what I'm gathering?
Yeah, and I would, if I was a customer, I think you would probably use some of that information to better assess my equipment, because that's why I think you're here.
Okay. So what I actually teach is what that question actually means. And what we're actually trying to identify with that question, look, while we're there, a lot of what you're saying right now, it's going to come out, right? We're going to get to those kind of things, that type of awareness. As we continue to ask questions, we're going to start to really understand how aware this customer is. But a question that says, how many years have you lived in this home? It really just identifies sticker shock. And here's what I mean by that. You know what sticker shock is? How surprised, the element of surprise at the end of the sale, right? Oh, I wasn't expecting this price. Whoa, right? That's sticker shock, okay? So here's what I mean. Here's what that question is asked for, and here's what it identifies. We ask that question to understand and know if this customer is going to have sticker shock, because if they say, and again, this is just an example, but if they say, hey, I've been in the house 2 years, most people write down the number 2 and they move on to the next question, which is how old is the furnace or AC, right? Or how old is the system, or how old is the water heater? But you miss the opportunity to expose a little bit more. What we're trying to do is evaluate through questions and understand how somebody makes buying decisions. The ultimate plan here is to overcome objections before they become verbal, before they become a problem at the end of a sale. You know, when we get to the end, if the price is too high or if there's sticker shock, we should have done a better job at exposing these things before it becomes a problem. So here's the idea. Instead of writing down the number 2 and moving on, we have to elaborate on a question like that. And here's what we can do. Oh, you've been in the house 2 years? Oh, okay. So were you guys first-time home buyers, or have you bought a house before? Oh, this is our first house. Oh, okay. So you've probably never done anything like bought a roof or done like, you know, siding or maybe insulation, or hey, maybe even replaced an HVAC system. Oh, no, we've never done anything like that. Okay. In our mind now, who is going to probably have sticker shock when we get to the end? Somebody that has zero experience with this. Now let's look at the opposite side of the spectrum. Now I've got the person that says, oh yeah, we've been in the house 18 years. Oh, 18 years. Okay. So you guys have probably done something like a roof or a water heater or maybe, you know, siding or insulation. Oh, honey, yes. If you can replace it on this house, we've replaced everything. So you tell me, who do you think now is going to have more high levels of anxiety toward the price when we get to the end? So what we're trying to do is evaluate through these questions, and these questions on a comfort survey or the assessment, which is step 2 in the care process, they really just expose how this person makes buying decisions. We have to start to understand how they make buying decisions. If we do, a lot of times there's no surprise when we get to the end. And that's really our job as an upper level communicator, is to make sure that there's no levels of surprise at the end. Let me give you another example of a question that would be on a comfort survey, and then kind of tell you the truth behind what we're asking. How about the next question? Number 2 on this one that I use in my training is, do you know how old the equipment is, right? How old is the furnace or AC? What am I getting to when I ask this? What do you think I'm trying to address when I ask, how old is the furnace or AC?
So if I was a homeowner, I would probably relate that to my car somehow, that we're going to have a conversation about, hey, as your car gets older, you know, expect more repairs and more expensive repairs. Okay.
So again, right, we may be a little bit out of alignment with what these questions, you know, really are. So how old is the furnace or AC actually exposes a decision maker? And here's what I mean by that. Let's just say, hypothetical scenario, we're in the house with a husband, a spouse, a husband, a male. And the husband says, oh, I have no idea, man. You'd have to ask my wife.
All right. I'm tracking with you on there. That makes sense.
Yeah. So now we get a few more questions down, and it says, hey, is there anybody else that needs to be involved in this process, right? Anybody else need to be involved in helping you choose your home comfort system? And the guy says no. But then we go just a few more questions down, and we ask something like, okay, and what do you keep your thermostat set out in the summer months? What do you keep your thermostat set at in the winter months? And they say, oh man, I don't touch the thermostat. I got no idea. You'd have to talk to my wife. Right? They said they were an ultimate decision maker, but is that really the case?
Right.
right? So we ask these types of questions. Can you reset that? We ask these types of questions because it allows us to truly understand how this customer makes buying decisions. We can challenge them when we get to that question when we say, does anybody else need to be involved in this process? They say no. We say, are you sure about that, man? Because the last couple of questions I've asked you, it seems like you really needed to lean on your spouse for the answer. And then you usually can extract that, right? Well, man, she's definitely going to be, a big part of the decision. Well, okay, now we're actually talking. Now we're communicating. Before, we weren't communicating. We were just kind of going back and forth, right? Now we're getting somewhere. And the rest of these questions all, I'm not going to say have a hidden agenda, but there's more there. There's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Most guys miss it. Most technicians, most trades people, they miss these questions because they take them at face value. So in my class, I explain that it's a lot more important to analyze these questions for truly what they are, get the actual meanings behind them, and then understand your customer a lot better when you dive into, the answers. Because it's not really about the questions that we ask. What we're really trying to identify is the way that they answer the question, which unlocks true buying potential. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that, and it's clever because it's you're sort of like sleuthing, right? You're uncovering bits and pieces of information that the common technician would not.
Right, and that's something that has to be taught. It's something that has to be trained on, right?
Yeah, I love it. Good stuff. Okay, so we've covered C and A. Is there anything left with A, or shall we move on to R?
Just remember in A, right, the assessment. In most cases, it's not just the assessment of the equipment. And I think that's the biggest thing that happens when we get out there is the customer, we treat it like we're just going to get some measurements so we can come back and put the right equipment in. And what we totally forget is the assessment of the person. Don't forget to assess these customers and how they make buying decisions. We have to take their measurements too. And that's really the biggest thing I want you to take away from assessment is it's not just about assessing the equipment. It's also about assessing the customer and understanding how they make buying decisions.
All right. Let's go with R. What does the R stand for?
Yeah, stuff is recommendations, right? So in recommendations, we have kind of a way that we present, a way that we, that we like to produce options. On the sales side, it's a little bit different than the service side. We just like to make sure on the sales side that there is several options. And again, I don't really want to give away the whole fort here, but I've got a 7-step process that I use for making these recommendations. But let me start by saying none of these recommendations should ever be made without permission to address problems. So what we do is we have this assessment, right? We get up from the assessment, we go assess the equipment, we get our measurements. As a technician, we're taught that we go look for findings, right? What's going on? What are some more things that we can benefit the customer experience with? What can we talk about? So we go back to the customer most of the time with an offer, not with findings. We go back with an offer. And that offer is, hey, here's the problems I found. And my first option is going to take care of all of them. Bang. And we hit them with it. And they're like, whoa. What if we retrain these guys to do this instead? What if we go back and we get the customer and we say, hey, based on those questions that I asked you earlier, I identified some things that were really important to you. Now, I've addressed some of these things that we talked about. Remember when you talked about the airflow over your daughter's bedroom? You said she was uncomfortable in the summer and now also a little bit, chilly down there in the winter, right? Well, here's what I found. Oh, okay. Yeah. So is this something that you want me to add to the quote today? And the customer says, oh man, if you can fix that, you'd be my hero.
Right.
Well, guess what we just got? We just got permission. So now it becomes their idea. And it's like, dude, this is not rocket science. It's just upper level communication. So now we've been given permission to address larger problems. So now there's no surprises when we get to the end. Now you've almost just been given permission to be the most expensive price that they see. Because when they see the price, there's not going to be the element of surprise. And if there is, you didn't do your job good enough. And that's really what we get to. So inside of, again, that 7-step process, we teach to go get the findings first, gain permission to address. And then once we're given permission, it becomes the customer's idea. We move on. Well, in moving on, we go build our proposal now, right? We've been given permission to address larger problems. We've identified all the problems. Now it's time to sit down and talk about the solution. So in the solution, I have a whole other way that I approach the solution because I feel like before, we did this really good job from the time the phone rang, and the incoming call came in. We were padded with all these questions, and we asked all these identifying questions. We talked about financing. We really overcame a lot of the panic and the fear and the anxiety that the customer feels. And now we're a half hour or 90 minutes into, or 60 minutes into this call. So we're about to hit them with pricing. We're about to have this big conversation, this big discussion on money. And I'm sure that you would agree with me that this is pretty emotional for a lot of our customers. It's a pretty emotional time. Usually it's 10, it's 15, it's 20, it's $25,000. It's not buying a gumball, right? This is a lot of money. It's a big journey that you're taking the customer on. So I'll tell you, in Hollywood, they have what's called a climax in our movies. We watch a movie and it's got a climax, right? And really, by definition, a climax is really just kind of the point. That is the end, at the end of a movie where kind of everything draws together to a close. Well, think about that for a sales process, and think of what I just said in that definition. A point in a movie, usually toward the end, where everything comes together to a close. Guys, isn't the sales process kind of a movie? We go out and we have a process and we follow it time and time and time again. We almost become desensitized to it. So when we get to the end now, we have to adopt a strategy of having a climax in our sales process. And that's what I teach. I teach these guys to go back, get the customer, re-educate them on all the reasons that they're about to do business with us. Re-evaluate the scenario. Don't just go hit them with pricing. That's not fair. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to your company. Instead, what I want you to do is I want you to go grab that customer and bring them up through an emotional high, an emotional swing, because we're about to hit them with the most emotional part of this process, the money. So why not right before the money should we pad this just a little bit more, pad this experience just a little bit more, offer a little bit more than our competitor? And what that could look like, could be an example of a good climax, right? So, hey, Mr. Customer, I told you earlier that our company had, we've been in business over 20 years. I mentioned we're very process driven. Everything that we do, we aim to please. That's why all of our warranties and our guarantees are in writing to back up your decision today. Now, one of the biggest reasons I said yes to come work for this company is because I know at the end of the day that they like to put the customer experience ahead of everything else, right? It's quality. They care more about the outcome than any other company that I've ever seen. And to be really honest with you, it makes me feel good when I wake up every day and know that I'm working for a contractor that feels as good about the end result as I do. So here's the deal, guys. I put together 4 options for you today for your approval, okay? My first option is my highest. It's my best, and it's certainly the one that I recommend. And then we go into more of a process, which is how to present and continue that level of quality in your presentation. So I'm very keen on making sure that you have that level of communication with the customer, because if you don't, you're selling yourself and your company and your family short.
Right. I think that's excellent. And the process piece is something that we've harped on here or talked about many times. In fact, we just did an episode not too long ago about process-driven growth, because that's something that will take you to that next level. I mean, you talked about winging it, and you get winged results, right? I mean, so having that entire thing kind of laid out, mapped out for you. Not that it's word for word, not that it's a script that you're reading from, right?
Yeah,
this
and make sure I elaborate on that, right? Go Time is what's considered principle-driven. We're a principle-based training company. In other words, you could take a lot of things that we do and be ultra successful with it just by adding it to what you currently do. It doesn't mean you have to reprogram and change everything. When it comes to things like mindset, yeah, I want to reprogram your mindset. I want you to think positive. I want you to to have a forward-thinking mindset that feels I deserve this, I should have this, I can picture myself closing this sale. And if you really can adopt that nature and be that positive, usually that's the outcome, because the customer can tell, right? The customer can tell when we lack confidence. They can tell when we have a bad day. They can tell when we're fighting with our spouse. All these things, right? They can tell. So if we're wearing it on our sleeve like that, hey, man, we might as well invest in ourselves and create the best experience we can, because it's worth it.
I feel like just adopting a process in general would make 80% of technicians more successful.
Adopting my process.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, it's and I'm sure your process is fantastic. I'm just saying, I believe even with a lot of presentation training that many techs have had.
No, you're right.
You could grab most technicians' passenger door, pop it open, have a seat in that passenger seat, ride with them after years of consistent training. And I don't think most technicians in their trucks use a process. And it was Weldon Long was on here and said, he said, consistent actions produce consistent results. Inconsistent actions produce inconsistent results. And you can see the pinball machine of paychecks of technicians who are on some kind of incentive-based pay structure. Just one paycheck is up here, one's down here, one's up here, one's down here. Yeah. It's like it's completely inconsistent. It sounds so stressful. I can't even imagine what their spouses go through. Where if they had, and I understand it's easy to say, it's easy to hear from the guy, on my truck radio right now who sits behind a desk, which is what I do and both of you do. But you are a trainer, and I was in a truck for most of my career, and there was a large part of that time where I had no process and I didn't even know what presenting was. And, I look at salespeople as horrible people.
Hey man, there's that stigma. Here it goes.
Yeah. But then in the first year or two, when I considered myself a professional selling technician, I was interested in finding needs that I could solve for the client that they didn't know they had when they called us out. And I wanted to get better at that. I tried to do it by just sheer willpower, by, knowing the right thing to say in the right moment without having any kind of process. And I had that pinball, bouncing paycheck where it was like, great this week. I'll get him on the next one. And then super this paycheck. And then the next one was like, don't worry, baby. We'll get it back. But no consistency whatsoever, because it was a crapshoot as to what was going to come out of my mouth when I got to that call versus a bullet point. Here are the things that I always do on every call. And I believe
here's a fact for you. I did some research last year when I was putting together a PowerPoint one day, and I'd noticed an article from the Harvard Business Review that were talking about, process-driven results. And they basically said that in this article that a company that has a formal sales process can generate 18% difference in revenue growth year over year. So, dude, some of these companies that are 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, $50 million, 18%, that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
18% is a lot of money, or 18% is a lot of money at just $1 million.
I just did the quick math on ours. I'm like, we better write up some processes. Fortunately, we have processes, but I am interested to know, and that's a great number. That might even be the quote for this episode, the 18% thing. But to know if you have a company with 6 trucks and you do the undercover boss thing and you get in the passenger seat and say, I'm rolling with you today, and find out that only 3 of them have a process, and to know that you can have on average 18% income raise by giving the other 3 a process, that is huge. I mean, an 8% revenue increase is massive for any company.
Yes, 18%, massive. It doesn't really even matter the size. Even if you're a small company, it's a step in the right direction. And I think that's the biggest thing that I want to point out is no stones unturned. Don't stop failing the customers. You're not just failing the company or yourself. You're failing the customer. You have to be willing to commit to a level of process so we can, if you do more, you're going to get more. And that's the bottom line.
When you say do more, I mean, somebody could take that the wrong way, right? And say like, oh, I gotta talk more, or I gotta overdo it, I guess is what I'm getting at, right? Is there a risk there?
No, because what I'm talking about is communication. I'm talking about asking better questions. I'm talking about having the conversation. Don't make your mind up for your customer. I just did a sales class last couple of days at Service Roundtable in Copel, Texas, and that's one of the things that you have to address to a lot of owners and a lot of guys that have been in the industry for a long time. Get out of your own way, because a lot of the time, man, what we continuously see, and I'll just use this as the example because this is actually what happened. I had a guy that kind of, started to argue a bit in the class, which is completely fine. I'm open to it. But we were talking about financing and making it easy to do business with your company by offering flexibility. Customers like that. And he said, no way. His customer base isn't like that. Well, it turns out he isn't like that.
Yeah, right.
He doesn't like financing. He doesn't like monthly payments. He doesn't like interest rates. He doesn't like credit. All these he's. Well, I think sometimes we get a little bit blindsided by the fact that stop involving your own personal opinion. Be open and be willing to accept sometimes that maybe somebody likes things a little bit differently than you.
Yeah, or don't. And there's some good operators in your area who will handle that for you. Don't worry about it. Somebody will be happy to take that work. Yeah, I'm on some of these Facebook groups with like HVAC owners and plumbing owners, and it was recently on one of the plumbing groups where guys like, we don't offer financing. We're plumbers, not bankers. And I'm like, well, that's great. As long as you want to rebuild Delta faucets, that's fine. But the second you have a homeowner who wants to actually do some substantial business with your company and make some real upgrades in their home, and you're not able to take care of them, there's a competitor that will be willing to do that.
Correct. It's a limited way of thinking, and it just means that there's going to be limited results, unfortunately. So yeah, man, I just wanted to, point that out, make that point. Don't involve your own opinion in a lot of this stuff, especially when it comes to thriving through following a process.
So let's narrow down to the end where we talk asking for the sale, closing, anything you want to share in those terms without giving away too many of your trade secrets that you charge for.
Yeah, man. So at the end, the final letter in the care process is execution, and connection assessment, recommendations, execution. So the E in care, and really what it encompasses and focuses on is is the sales process done when we hear yes. When we're a sales guy or we're a selling technician and we're in the house and we get the yes, and I can even tell you, I've had guys that I've worked on, even on my teams in my past, that have had the vibe and the attitude on a daily basis of, hey man, I sold the project, dude. I did my job. And they want to butt out. Like, hey man, I sold it, baby. That's it. I'm out. I sold it. And that's really where our job starts, right? So we talked a lot about mindset at the beginning of this. We talked about the sales process starts when the phone rings. Okay. Well, now the installer and their mindset, it's also important because they're going in and delivering an experience to the customer as well after we leave. So their process starts when we hear yes. So it's time now to do everything that we're supposed to do to create clarity and create, the best environment for them to be successful in as well, which also helps their mindset when they show up, right, to the job to install this stuff. Sure. So how do we button up? What are things that we do? How are we communicating with the install department? And then it goes further. How are we requesting reviews? How are we, talking about the customer experience? How are we creating the ultimate customer experience by means of, do we send out birthday cards? Are we, how are we separating ourselves and making sure that we are delivering after the sale process is in most people's minds completed when we get that deposit check and we get the proposal signed? Really, that's where it starts. So we want to make sure in execution that we cover all bases for the install department to make sure that they can be successful too, but that we're also exposing everything that we can to ask for referrals, to talk about, the networking groups that we can get out and get into and get involved with, like the Chamber of Commerce and BNI and all these types of things that, hey, do they work for everybody? Do they work in every market? You're missing the point. It's about getting out there and creating a brand for yourself. It's not about, well, I've only gotten one lead in the last 5 weeks. Like, you're looking at it wrong. And that's probably why you've only gotten one lead in the last 5 weeks from a networking group like that. But really just committed to the end here. How do we, really put the icing on the cake for the customer experience? And that's really kind of some of the things that we cover in execution.
Hey, Joe, this has been good stuff, and we really appreciate any guy who brings not just like great content, but also a great process, because that makes it so much easier to follow along, especially as an audio podcast. When you have like that acronym or those types of points and things, could you just recap the CARE process for us, the CARE, real quick?
Sure. Connection, assessment, recommendations, execution. The C for connection, how are we arriving? What are things that we're doing to make sure that the customer understands we're the right company? We're sending out the right person. Here's clarity on how we're going to get to the finish line, right? The assessment is how are we evaluating the customer with questions? A lot of times we think as companies that we go out to these calls and the assessment's supposed to be the measurements, the furnace, the flue pipe all the way to the Y, or, how far away is the floor drain, or, the plenum, or, right? We miss the opportunity to evaluate the actual customer. Recommendations, how are we presenting options? There's a psychological process that we have to bring the customer through while we're presenting. If we don't, then we're going to fail. You can't just tug on all these heartstrings and have all these emotions involved in a sales process and not kind of complete them when we get toward the end. So in recommendations, that's something that we go through. And then finally, the execution. How are we buttoning up? How are we communicating this job once the project is sold? How are we asking for reviews, for referrals? What are we doing to elevate the customer experience on the backside of this thing? Birthday cards, recording pet names in the system, knowing the children's names when we show up, right? These are all very small things. The other people in the industry have said things like, hey, call your customer, bring them their favorite candy bar, whatever that is to you. Do it, right? Commit to it. Have it in your process to deliver the ultimate customer experience. And the CARE process allows and helps you to do that.
I love it. That's great stuff. Thanks for the recap there. We're kind of going to bring things in for a landing here, Joe, and I know there's a few remaining things that you'd like to cover regarding creating that ultimate customer experience. So let's wrap up with those things.
So, the CARE process in itself, hopefully with what some of your listeners have heard, hopefully what I've kind of described and talked about already, hopefully it creates some interest in at least, hey, maybe we should follow a process. But I don't really have anything else that I want to touch on for process, but I do want to touch on this. At GoTime, we're real big on making sure that companies do one thing. Every time that you go to bat with your technicians and your training, you should be training from the 4 toolboxes that Ben Stark came up with. And the 4 toolboxes of a master tech are the tools of the trade, the industry knowledge, the communications, and becoming either a mentor and or a lifelong student, which is a mindset thing, right? You have to have a certain level of passion in you to satisfy a customer over time, right? Otherwise, you get desensitized to this type of job. But those 4 buckets, right? Tools, knowledge, communicator, and mindset. And I want to touch on them just for a second. Every time we go to train, every time we go to deliver information to our teams, we should be picking things from these buckets, right? We can almost associate them to call them business units. We should be pulling from these business units, right? First one's tools. Are you super successful in the tools that can make your job and the customer experience better? What are tools for a comfort advisor? I don't know. Tools to measure airflow, tools to measure static pressure. How about a measuring tape? How about an iPad, right? Whatever it is, whatever you come up with, are we training consistently on the tools that create a better experience for our company in our process, in our technicians? If not, do it. Because everybody should have proper knowledge and proper use and proper care of the tools of the trade, right? What does that apply to toward the many different facets or avenues of our business? The second thing is industry knowledge, right? Knowledge. Having enough knowledge from the experience that we gain. You know, sometimes we slap ourselves silly because, you know, we're in the house and all of a sudden we don't have a pen that writes or just something stupid. It's like we don't learn from the mistakes from the previous calls. And that's not sometimes the fault of the technician. It's the fault of the leadership. The industry knowledge that I'm talking about here is things that we need to kind of retain in a training environment, because sometimes we don't learn the hard way. Sometimes we have to learn the soft, easy, predictable way, which is the way that we arrive through training. So we should always be talking about things that are in our trainings that are things of the industry. What is some knowledge I can take away? Is it going to be airflow related? Is it going to be, you know, recall related? Is it going to be, you know, always have this kind of this nature to have a forward thinking strategy for collecting knowledge on your craft, on your portion of the industry. The next is being an upper level communicator. We're talking about that now. That's kind of my bucket. I fill this bucket all the time, right? Role playing is something that I'm huge with. And inside of communications, elevating the customer experience, it's never possible without practical application. You have to see how these guys are failing, you know, whether it's going to be in your environment or you're going to do ride-alongs with them and jump in the field with them. We have to see how the communication with the customer is so we can always continue to better that experience. The point is we're supposed to be devising training for our staff in these buckets, right? So what are we doing to up our game, up the ante in communications? And then finally, the last one in the 4 toolboxes of a master tech is mindset, right? You have to be to kind of have that always be learning type mindset. You can't have the one that says I know it all, right? You also have to have a certain level of passion to satisfy the customer. Well, what's that look like, right? It shows up in your work, right? So a lot of times we have competitions at companies where we say, all right, man, first one to sell a Ramey Halo gets X, Y, Z. Well, what if we had a competition that was about craftsmanship? The first one to do this and it looked this good, right? Right. Like, and that's the kind of challenges that we like to talk about and structure. But inside of being mentor and kind of lifelong student, you always have to have that nature of I'm willing to learn. I might not know it all, and have that kind of that passion to satisfy the customer. So I just wanted to make sure that I touched on those because Go Time's real big on training into the toolboxes, making sure that in order to produce a master craftsman, ideally this is the areas of focus that you should stimulate all the time inside of your staff.
Absolutely. Those are really 4 good principles, tactics, and approaches to take. I love that. Go over those 4 one more time for us.
Yes, sir. The 4 toolboxes of a master tech are tools, our knowledge, our communicator, and our mindset. In tools, it's tools of the trade. In knowledge, it's industry knowledge. In being an upper level communicator, it's doing things like role playing. It's doing things like training on upper level communication. Finally, on mindset, it's having the mindset of I can always learn just a little bit more. Yeah.
That's a big emphasis of what we're about here at the Waste No Day podcast, always getting better and always making room for improvement. So that's good stuff.
Awesome, man.
Well, thanks, Joe, for being with us today. I didn't want to let you go without giving the opportunity for people to find out more about what you do and how they could get more of you, more of what you're talking about in terms of sales and also the technical side of things. So what's Go Time all about?
Yeah, man, we got a bunch of stuff going on at Go Time. Number one, we got the book. It's Go Time. It's on Amazon and it's on our website, GoTimeSuccessGroup.com. I like to say that we have a stable full of like thoroughbred style horses, right? We're all race horses. I've got Daryl Otto on the technical aspect. I got Charles Morales, 35-year veteran trainer on the technical side. Daryl does bits and pieces that build a tech class and also has his own install class. You got me. I do a lot of stuff with sales and communication. We got Sean Henson. We got Mike Raymer. We got Adrian Neff, Kirsten Weeks. Those are our Service Titan coaches. We're certified Service Titan providers. We offer a lot of training inside of Service Titan as well. But we have in-person classes. We do online consulting. We have the Contractor University that has a lot of the interplay technology, virtual reality. We can do a ton of training online through the university that has, you can wear the Oculus glasses and, really it's kind of neat. It kind of elevates that training experience for these younger technicians and almost turns it into a video game, man. Kind of speaks their language. But yeah, Go Time is fully loaded. We seem to focus a lot on the fundamentals. And I think that's a very important thing to mention because it's skipped by a lot of other training organizations out there, right? They all have their own methods and their ways. Where's the fundamentals at?
Right. Absolutely. Wow. You got a ton of stuff going on there and some really good names and concepts I think you're teaching about. If people are interested in getting on board with any of that stuff, where's the best place to sign up or enroll, or how does that work?
Yeah. Best place is Super Team, SUPER team, TEAM at GoTimeSuccessGroup.com. Super Team at GoTimeSuccessGroup.com. Shoot us an email and we are happy to respond and, set something up, maybe jump on, get face to face on a Zoom call or anything like that. But yes, sir.
And you're all HVAC or do you have plumbing as well?
As far as the technical side of what we do, it's mainly HVAC, but let me make sure I'm very clear on this. Trade doesn't matter when you're dealing with communication, right? A plumber that's going to present multiple options is going to present them the same way an HVAC guy is. It's just what's going to change is the technical terms, not the delivery of how we get there. So yeah, we work with a ton of companies that are just, that are all over the trades. We've got spray foam contractors. We've got, electrical contractors. We've got window companies. We work with a ton of companies because typically what they're looking for is what we talked about a while ago. It's just kind of having that process and being held accountable to a standard. It's
been a privilege to have you on, Joe, and thank you for sharing not only some of your process with us, but all the opportunities that exist for improving all the people in the trades and making them better overall. We really appreciate it.
It was great talking to you, and we will definitely have you on again for another episode.
Awesome, man. Thank you guys for having me, dude. I appreciate it. You guys take care.
Hey, we hope you enjoyed that podcast with Joe Pearson. I know I can always appreciate somebody who brings forth not only good content, but the structure to frame it in. It's easy to follow along. It's easy to keep those concepts or those letters in your head and give yourself a process. Remember, it's about having something in the home to fall back onto. I mean, we all know what happens when we run out of script and we're supposed to just ad-lib it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But how good would it be to have something just ingrained in your mind that when you kind of lose track of what you're supposed to be saying or the conversation starts feeling a little dull, you can just hop right into that next letter, that next process, that next step, and keep on rolling with something that you know is going to get you good results. I know we had good results today with Joe Pearson, and I really appreciated his approach. Check out GoTime. We're looking at them here, and we certainly already sent some people there. We're looking forward to potentially doing more of that, but I think they bring a lot to the table in terms of improvement and offering some really good and current content for today's trade industry. As always, we want to challenge you to be improving, whether it's through this podcast, through GoTime, or through something else that you are doing. Find a way to make yourself better, to look into the mirror and to find the next best version of yourself and go and pursue it, and to choose to wake up every single morning and waste no day.